Yes, guys, when Nuno Espirito Santo took over at Nottingham Forest, they were sat in 17th place in the Premier League table. It was cold. It was December. A points deduction was looming over the head of the football club. And now, in March 2025, Nottingham Forest are proudly sat in 3rd place in the Premier League table. And boy, oh boy, if you're a Forest fan, doesn't this look good? You are 5 points ahead of 4th place Chelsea, 6 ahead of Manchester City, and I believe Nuno Espirito Santo deserves some respect put on his name, because what he has done at Nottingham Forest is nothing shy of remarkable. When Nottingham Forest were winning trophies in the late 70s, the 1980s, Forest fans were in delirium. It was incredible, and since then, there's obviously been a tricky period of their history. But now, what Nuno has done is more than stabilise the club. They're now an established Premier League side once again, and they are flying high in the Premier League table. And today, after Ipswich 2, Nottingham Forest 4, another away win yesterday for Forest, I want to talk about just how good of a season this has been, and even from this point now, if they don't finish in the top 4 or 5, which gets Champions League football, most likely next season, I still think this has been a massive year for consolidating Nottingham Forest. But look, we're talking about maybe they won't make it. I absolutely think, especially after recent games and the way they bounced back from a bad run, I think Forest are an absolute shoo-in to get Champions League football next season. Here's why. So if we look here at the average ratings this season of Nottingham Forest players, a 6.96 sees them ranked 9th out of 20 in the competition, compared to that of last season, with a 6.85, 17 out of 20th. So, even this season, when you actually look at the player ratings, and this is on SofaScore, so this is take it with a pinch of salt, but even based on the ratings, Nottingham Forest are outperforming, technically, where they should be, based on the performance levels of the players this season. But doesn't really matter what it says with the player ratings when you are sat in 3rd place in the Premier League. Now, one of the key things that Nottingham Forest have done this season is significantly outperform their XG. They've got over 10 goals more than what their expected goals tally suggests, which is why, and the key stat really that explains just how efficient Nottingham Forest have been. Heading over to FB Ref, we can see the top goal scorer this season is obviously Chris Wood, with 18 goals in 28 Premier League games from an XG of 10.9. That is an incredible increase on what he was expected to do. Morgan Gibbs-White with 5 league goals, more than the 3.9. Hudson-Odoi 5 from an XG of 2.2. That in virtually all of the players that Nottingham Forest have that are scoring goals, they're scoring goals that maybe they shouldn't have even scored. Obviously, in a Premier League season where, other than Liverpool, nobody's really been taking it by storm, we've not seen consistency from very many sides in the league this season, Nottingham Forest have been incredibly consistent. And if you look here, when you look at the points that they've got at home, it's not as if they're just getting points at home. They've won 8, drawn 4, only lost 2 at the City ground. The away record is really good as well. 7 wins, 2 draws, and 5 defeats. You'd normally expect a team to probably perform a little bit better at home. But as well as that, you've got yourselves a goalkeeper here that is saving them points game after game. Matz Sels, player value 7.4 million euros. Again, not what would be considered before this season a top goalkeeper, but a top signing for Nottingham Forest. The man's 33 years old. The average rating this season, 7.04. And this guy has kept more clean sheets than any goalkeeper in the Premier League. He's been absolutely outstanding. And that is why when you look here at Nottingham Forest, they've only conceded 33 goals. You've got a positive 12 goal difference. And this was before the match that we saw yesterday against Ipswich, where Nottingham Forest were absolutely brilliant. And I want to focus on 2 of the goals in particular. This here is the 3rd goal that was scored, Anthony Elanga's 2nd goal of the game. What we see, which is absolutely fascinating here, is the movement and the ability of Chris Wood. And this screenshot you can see on the screen now is Chris Wood drawing himself back towards his own goal to drag players from the opposition out of their defensive positions, which then allows the movement of both Hudson-Odoi and Anthony Elanga, Forest wingers, to be beyond him to make those runs at a now depleted defence. This is something that we have seen countless times this season from Nottingham Forest, where the majority of the time Chris Wood isn't actually the most advanced player in the field. You can see here that even yesterday, both Hudson-Odoi and Elanga are spending the majority of the time further towards the opposition goal. This is genius because not only is Chris Wood good in the air, good with his feet, good when he does get the ball in the box, but he's also so good at drawing defences out of position to enable the pacier players in that Forest team to hurt the opposition. Something else that's also fascinating about Nottingham Forest this season is that they're managing to win all of these matches and not lose all of these matches with only 39.4% of possession on average in any given game. As well as that, they've also completed less passes than any side in the league this season, which to me, this is critical because not always are you going to be able to pass, suffocate opposition and win football matches the way that Guardiola tries to do it. Enzo Maresca at Chelsea tries to do it by keeping the ball. If you're not going to be efficient, if you're not going to be clinical with the way that you have the ball, you're not going to get anywhere. And I think a key position that we need to look at this season for Nottingham Forest, as well as the brilliant wingers and Elanga, Hudson-Odoi has obviously been so good as well. I want to focus on this moment quickly. A lot of wingers that are playing for themselves would look at this position, go for something a bit different. Hudson-Odoi sees the space at the far post, and this is what led to the goal from Milinkovic to open the scoring at Portman Road yesterday. But what has been so impressive for me about this Nottingham Forest team is the midfield. What we see pretty much every game is a 4-2-3-1 setup from Nuno, Dominguez alongside Elliot Anderson, who's been an almost ever-present this season, Morgan Gibbs-White, who, let's be honest, if you're looking at that England squad from Tuchel, Morgan Gibbs-White, who's the captain of Nottingham Forest, the side in third, he is in such good form. Only Ian Woan has got more goal involvements than Morgan Gibbs-White in Nottingham Forest Premier League history. And this guy was playing back when I was born. When you've got the speed and the directness of Hudson-Odoi and Elanga, with the intelligence of a striker like Chris Wood, who's also scoring so many goals, when you're able to pack out the midfield the way that Nottingham Forest are, teams are finding it difficult to break them down. That can explain why Matz Sels has got 11 clean sheets, more than any other goalkeeper in the league this season. But more importantly than that, Nottingham Forest are just so clinical in so many ways. Now, I made a video about a week ago talking about Brighton, and I said that Brighton's resurgence was down to the way that Nottingham Forest and Nuno Espirito Santo absolutely schooled that Brighton team. During that game, you saw Nottingham Forest everywhere in the middle, basically just like a rash all over that Brighton side that was thin in numbers in the middle of the park. And that dominance from Forest is an absolute prime example as to just how clinical they've been. And even yesterday against Ipswich Town, look at this. There's 3 goals scored before half-time in an 8-minute section of the game. This is absolute dominance. That first half from Forest is absolute textbook. That is how you hurt teams when you're playing away from home in the Premier League. You take your chances, you score your goals, you finish the game off, and then for the second half, obviously Ipswich are going to come back in it. They're fighting for their lives at the bottom of the table. But man of the match display from Milinkovic, he was absolutely brilliant, got himself a goal and an assist. You've got players here in this Forest team contributing from everywhere. As well as that, Ola Aina, Nico Williams, these guys this season, pretty much ever-presence in the team. If we look here at the minutes played in the Premier League this season for Forest, Chris Wood has played 28 games. Elanga and Aina, Matz Sels, 28. You can see the majority of these players, Murillo, Anderson, they're playing every single game. Again, I always compare to Chelsea because they're my club. But with Chelsea, we've not seen consistency. We're seeing players come in, come out, injuries here. But Forest, yeah, maybe they've been lucky that they've not had too many big injuries to worry about. But like at the start of this season, I'd have said James Ward-Prowse would have been a player to make a difference for them. But he's not really been able to get in the game when he was playing for them as well. Overall, there's just a lot of quality in this Nottingham Forest team. And if you're able to not have the ball, if you're not making as many passes as virtually every team in the league, then you've got to say that the setup from the manager is absolutely incredible. And look, if we bring that Premier League table up once again, they're just absolutely killing it. And to be third place with only 7 defeats out of 29, 6 ahead of Man City, 7 ahead of 6th place Newcastle, I cannot see a world right now where Nottingham Forest do not get a Champions League spot at the end of this season. And it's credit to Nuno, but all over the pitch we are seeing quality performances game after game, consistently from this Nottingham Forest team. Let me know your thoughts on them in the comments down below. Enjoy it. If you're a Nottingham Forest fan, what a season this is. You are back heading towards the glory days that were there to get you those stars. Thank you guys for watching this video. Subscribe to more GBFC. I'll see you a lot later.